Chapter 7. The Mind Reader. It is the soul itself which sees and hears, and not those parts which are, as it were, but the windows to the soul. Cicero. Dr. Hamoval entered with a young man of extraordinary personal appearance. He was below the medium stature, of slender form, large and intellectually developed head, covered with a profusion of snow-white hair. His complexion was a bright blue, his features delicate, the expression pleasing and good-humored. He was blind, and his sightless eyes had a pathetic look. He was clad in plain attire, like that of a student. The doctor greeted me cordially, seeming pleased at my improved personal appearance, but opened his eyes somewhat at the sight of my cigar, which John had laid carefully aside. The young man advanced, and as I arose, bowed courteously, and in a gentle voice, "Lieutenant Hamilton, I am indeed proud to enjoy the honor of an introduction to you, and beg your kind acceptance of my congratulations on your recovery." "Good heavens!" I exclaimed. "Can it be possible that I meet a fellow countryman here? I am indeed delighted." Then, as I noted his extraordinarily colored hair, complexion, etc., "Pardon me, sir, your peculiar appearance doubtlessly surprises and puzzles you, and I do not wonder," he replied with a pleasant smile. "Permit me to introduce myself. My name is Askopion Vidyumat, and I belong to what is called the Nilata, or blue race. This gentleman," turning to the doctor, "is Theoros Tsar Hamival of the Arunga, or yellow race. He is one of our most eminent physicians, holding a distinguished rank among the medical profession of our country, the name and situation of which, however, I am not permitted at present to make known to you. When you and your wounded companion were brought here from the little rocky island, where you so bravely rescued from imminent death one very dear to us all, you were seized with a severe inflammation of the brain, and for a long time your life hung on a thread. But Dr. Hamoval's skill and devoted attention were the means, under God, of saving your life." Recovering from my astonishment at hearing this remarkable-looking young man, belonging to a race wholly unknown on earth, conversing in my native language, I replied, "Will you do me the favor, sir, and convey to Dr. Hamoval my sincere thanks for his great kindness and my high appreciation of his medical skill?" Ascopion spoke to the doctor, evidently translating to him my words, and the doctor replied with a courteous expression of thanks to me. "I will now briefly inform you," continued Ascopion, "the process by which I have acquired your language. I am what is called a mind reader. Many in my country possess this gift. I was brought here 2 days ago, when you were thrown into what you would call the mesmeric sleep by my dear friend Pharaoh Tsar Hypnosos, who is one of our most distinguished mesmerists, or magnetizers, as you call them, although we employ quite a different word to express the phenomenon. I was then thrown by him into the mind-reading trance. I took my station by your side, and occupied the whole time in reading your mind and memory, studying out your language, in other words, your vocal method of expressing your thoughts and ideas. I have now become thoroughly acquainted with it, and shall be most happy to officiate as an interpreter between yourself and our friends here." I had occasionally witnessed a few experiments in what is called mind-reading by self-styled professors of mesmerism, psychology, etc., but this wonderful exhibition of his power in acquiring my language within 48 hours considerably surprised me. "While you were studying my language," I said, "did you ascertain anything else relating to me, my race, country, or how I came here?" "I did not. I was occupied solely in inquiring your language. I know nothing of your race, your nationality, whence you came, or how you arrived here. Our friends were perfectly astonished when they found you on the little rock in the midst of this great ocean around us. During the delirium of your illness you talked of many things, but none of us understood your language. Your companion imitated by signs that you had come from some far distant country to the north. Will you kindly inform us who you are and where you come from?" "I am a citizen of the United States of America, and an officer in the U.S. Navy." Ascopion translated my announcement. The doctor spoke a few words to him, and he replied, Dr. Hamaval requests me to say that we know nothing of whatsoever concerning of the country you speak of. Can it be possible you have never heard of the greatest and most glorious republic on the face of earth, whose name is honored in every land and whose star-spangled banner floats over every ocean on the globe? We regret to say we have not. Nor of Christopher Columbus, World's Fair, Democratic Party? We grieve to announce we never have. Nor of Washington, afternoon teas, and the New York 400? We are very sorry indeed, he replied with an expression of intense interest as I announced these latter objects of such vital importance amongst our superfine kid-gloved Honton. Good heavens, I involuntarily exclaimed. What a stupendous ignorance! Hi, giggled John. These folks ain't a bit fashionable, nohow. These statements seemed so outrageously incredible, I concluded he and the doctor were indulging in a little pleasantry, or were trying to deceive me for purposes of their own, and I determined to ascertain the truth, if possible, by a test which I thought would be satisfactory. You say that I was in the mesmeric sleep, and you in the mind-reading trance, when you acquired my language. Are you in that trance now? No, I am in my normal wide-awake state, as you all are. Well, if you are out of the trance, how can you possibly read my mind? The ice once broken, I can read your mind as easily while out as in the trance. That is quite beyond the abilities of any mesmerist or clairvoyant subject I ever heard of. They can only manifest the power while in the clairvoyant trance. When out of it and in their normal state, they are wholly unable to do so. The powers of our clairvoyance are not limited that way. The mind once read can always be read, and at any time read for a month to come. Really, do you pretend to say that you are able to read my thoughts? Pardon me, dear sir, I make no pretense about it. I simply say I can read your thoughts on any subject that you may choose to think about. Tell me, what am I thinking about this moment? Asclepion laid his delicate hand gently on my forehead and fixed his sightless eyes on mine. Their glance was mysterious, indescribable, almost terrible. For a moment I felt almost unnerved. Then, withdrawing his hand, "You are thinking of a ship," he said. This was a fact. I was not a little staggered at his announcement of it. "And of her name also," he continued. "What name?" "The Albatross." "True, but I may have uttered that name in the delirium of my illness, and any quick-witted person could connect it with a ship. So this, after all, may be merely a species of your probability gymnastics, or a lucky guess on your part." "Thanks for your compliment, sir," he replied with a little hauteur. Although somewhat nettled at this polite rebuke, I felt that it was not quite undeserved. Nevertheless, I was determined to continue my test. Then, turning to John, "Have you ever spoken, or imitated by signs, or otherwise, to anyone here, anything about ourselves or our ship?" "No, indeed, Captain Fred. Me no gabble about private business to no body. No heap better than that. No buddy getty anything out of me, no how," he replied emphatically. I was quite satisfied with John's discretion in the matter. Then to Asclepion, "Have you ever seen or heard of my ship?" "Do blind persons see ships with their bodily eyes? I never heard of your ship until this moment." If, as you say, I am thinking about a ship, I must have some sort of picture of her in my mind." "So you have. That is the way with all mental operations with reference to natural objects. They are presented as pictures before the eye of the mind, and the accuracy of those pictures depends on the clearness and precision of the mind. There is a very great difference between minds in that respect." "Can you perceive that picture in my mind?" "I perceive it perfectly with the eyes of my own mind. In other words, my spiritual eye." "In that case, you should be able to give it a description of what you see." "Certainly, and if it please you, I will do it." "It will please me greatly," I replied. Asclepion paused a few moments as if in deep thought, then slowly, as if observing in detail, "I see pictured in your mind what you call a brig, rigged screw steamer, 700 tons burden and 500 horsepower, built evidently for a polar voyage. She is encased with steel sheeting, fully supplied with all the necessary equipments, has a crew of 30 seamen, officers, engineers, surgeon. Her prow is ornamented with a carved image of an albatross, one of her wings broken off, has lost 3 of her anchors, appears to have passed through a severe storm, and many parts of her hull are battered as if from blows of ice masses. On her stern, in gilt letters, is inscribed her name, the Albatross. You are now thinking of her commander, his name, Captain William Anderson, a relative of yours, great uncle, a first-class sailor. You are now thinking of a glacier, an ice cavern, you 2 men shut up there. But this is foreign to the subject. Sir, is my description correct? Perfectly correct in every particular, I replied, thoroughly astonished. Now, if you like, I will show you something better than this, and much more satisfactory to you. I am blind, as you perceive, was born so, consequently my ideas of light, color, shade, form, dimension, distance, etc., of all materials are, as in the case with a blind person, entirely different from those who are blessed with vision. Your idea about all these things are derived from a means of your senses of sight and touch, aided also by hearing. Mine are derived by touch alone. Now I am something of an artist, and I will make a sketch of your ship, drawn from your own mind, as you last saw her, if agreeable to you. Here surely was a test offered which would have thoroughly satisfied any committee of examiners in the mysteries of mesmerism or psychology, and I gladly accepted it. Dr. Hamoval placed a large sheet of drawing paper and a different colored crayons before him on the table. And in order that you may be thoroughly satisfied as to the impossibility of any trick or deception on my part, continued he, I request you to have my eyes blindfolded. John wrapped a pair of handkerchiefs around his eyes and drew his sailor's woolen cap completely over his head. Hi, me reckon you can no see with this nightcap nohow. Well, John, we'll see about that, as the blind man says. Then, are you ready, Lieutenant? Yes, I have a pretty clear picture of my ship delineated in my mind. You must hold it there steadily. Don't let your mind wander from it while I am making the sketch, or I shall get things mixed up. Begin at the hull, then go up to her deck, then to her masts, rigging, all around the other appointments, officers, crew, surroundings, etc., and any other necessary detail in regular order, as I progress. All right. Ascopion drew the sheet before him, took up his crayons one by one, making the sketch, filling up detail, color, light, shade, etc., his hand swiftly flying over the paper. I watched with breathless interest. All at once he paused. Please go on, I said. Your mind is wandering from the subject. Indeed, how do you know that? You are thinking of a big hotel, a church, menagerie, a mill pond, a baseball game, a tea party, naval review, an iceberg 500 feet high, and a national convention considerably mixed up. Do your polar navigators usually carry that sort of freight on board ship? If so, I'll put them all on the deck, but it strikes me that there be not much room left for your crew. This was the fact. I had purposely allowed my thoughts to wander off to those subjects merely to test his powers, and I had felt rather cheap at being detected in it. Please keep your wandering thoughts on board ship where they belong, at least for the present, till I get through. Then you are at liberty to wander on fancy's wing wherever you please. All right, I'll never give up the ship, and I stuck close to the Albatross. Ascopion's hand flew over the paper with amazing speed, snatching up and throwing down the crayons one by one without making a single mistake or erasure. In less than 30 minutes he completed what would have required at least 4 hours' unremitting labor by the hand of the most rapid and skillful artist I ever knew. Then presenting it to me, how do you like the picture? To say that I was perfectly astounded is weak expression. Here was my ship, every detail from stem to stern, from keel to topmast, delineated with accuracy of a photograph. At last I saw her moored up near the glacier, the steam pouring from her funnel, her figurehead the Albatross with broken wing, the stars and stripes streaming from her foretopmast, Captain Anderson and officers on her quarter-deck, her crew on her forecastle or scattered amongst the rigging, watching our party pass passing across the glacier. The delineated figures were necessarily so minute I examined them with my pocket microscope. They were drawn and colored to life. Overhead was a polar sky, the sun hanging low in the horizon. In front was the great glacier and the sea with its scattered flows, in the distance looming up the great icebergs. John, who had watched the performance with open-mouthed amazement, whispered in my ear, "Captain, he be terrible witch man." The cap and the handkerchiefs were removed. The doctor now resumed conversation, Ascopion acting as translator. "Well, Lieutenant," he asked, "what's your opinion of our friend's mind-reading and picture-making abilities?" "I never dreamed it was possible any human being could be endowed with such powers," I replied. "It seems almost like a miracle." "This is working, so to speak, on the surface of the mind only. We have experts in our country who possess far greater powers and who can make far deeper researches in the mind, who can find out everything about a person's whole life, who can fathom the whole mental and moral character, all its proclivities and tendencies towards good or evil, virtue or vice, truth or falsehood, who can find out every secret thought, desire, or act done at any time in the past or proposed to the mind for the future. In short, can turn the whole man inside out, as it were, and disclose him to the world." As I reflected upon this tremendous psychological power, before whose infallible search nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, nothing is covered that shall not be revealed, and whatsoever is spoken in darkness that shall not be heard in light, as a prophecy that might, in the not most far distant future, be fulfilled to the letter by the cultivation and advancement of psychological science amongst us terrestrians, I realized how exceedingly useful such a mode of inquest might be to the world in general and society in particular, although many high-toned members might seriously object to having their moral closets overhauled in this style. But leaving that class out, if we turn to what are called the lower orders of humanity, who generally do their wicked things open and above board, and don't care to steal the livery of heaven to serve the devil in, the establishment of such a psychological tribunal would be highly valuable in many ways. The whole paraphernalia of our criminal courts, with their judges, juries, lawyers, witnesses, police detectives, etc., might be dispensed with, and there would be no courts except for adjudicating equity or punishment. All dishonesty, hypocrisy, and lying would be worse than useless. The rogues, cheats, swindlers, and criminals would not only be instantly detected, but compelled to confess their evil intentions beforehand. At this moment one of the servants entered and spoke a few words to the doctor. "Lieutenant Hamilton," said he, "a distinguished visitor has arrived, and whom you will doubtlessly recognize." Then to his servants, "Admit His Highness."